What's up, guys? Brian back from the PT channel here to talk about some physical therapy, life as a therapist. Just this week stuff. Today's Saturday, had to wake up early, go to a meeting. That was 45 minutes from my house to be in the meeting for about 2 hours, to drive back 45 minutes to get that. But the good thing was that it was a paid meeting, so it wasn't for all for naught. So, which is good, some training about Medicare stuff and whatever for one of the home health companies that I work for. Like I said, I work for a couple of different companies. I just signed on with another company it's like an assisted living type of home health place where you just travel to them and it's in the same kind of complex. It's not go to different homes, single family homes. They're kind of living in a connected place that it is. So I haven't started yet, but I got to do the training for that and get that rolling on it as well. So for myself, I find that I like working for a couple of different companies. Being PRN, part-time status, gives you a little more flexibility of things. I've been a therapist for over 7 years now, and I was a staff therapist, worked my way up to a manager, and then back to a staff therapist, part-time PRN stuff. And staff therapist is good to start out and get as much education as you can in that. If you're interested in home health, you want to have at least a year experience before you can really start that. A lot of companies want. So it's a good way that you make some really good money doing home health. And you can do it part-time and just supplement your income, a couple patients a week or even a couple patients a month, and get a good amount of income for it. But, I've found myself now at this stage of my life, 7 years out being a therapist and all the craziness that came with being a manager and everything. I like being a PRN person that works part-time, but you get paid a little bit more as a part-time person through that. So I like getting a little more wages for that. And when the clinic's kind of crazy and all that and flexibility, I can get out and go out and have a vacation or go travel and go see my family back home and everything, and it's great. I have more flexibility with that, and that's the name of the game with the part-time status. So, but just from the paperwork, from the meeting that we had here, we talked about paperwork, documentation, communication, a lot of good stuff, and I thought it was pretty interesting to talk about it for this week's life of a PT. But they talked about, basically there was myself and another guy in there with 13, 14 other women, which is basically the world of therapy. It's more women dominated, which is fine. But if you're looking into it, it's got to be ready to be expecting that, which is always fine. It's not a bad thing. But we did CMS training, which is Medicare and Medicaid, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, systems or whatever CMS stands for. And we're still working on the organization of the home health companies, and it's basically a tough task because it's kind of a startup thing. It's been less than a year that this company started rolling in that. They were in a skilled nurse facility, and now they ventured out to home health. So it's kind of a learning curve for them and everything, and it's getting OTs and home health aides and PTs and nurses on there too. Home health definitely deals with more nursing than anything, but the PT side of it is a good aspect as well, and you can make some pretty good money, especially if you're pretty busy with it. But just some things we talked about: start of cares, paperwork. They have all these guidelines now. The Medicare is such a pain in the butt that they always have guidelines. They always have things with that. And CMS, basically Medicare, can deny payment for 2 years if your documentation is not being done. So some would say that documentation is more important than actual patient care, because if you're not documenting correctly, you can get audited and you can get denial of payment, and no one wants to work for free, so that's just crap. So documentation standards need to be high, and they need to be held high for Medicare or for anything in general, but definitely for Medicare patients, because more and more of those guidelines are being met by other companies as well. So they set the tone for the Medicare standards, they set the tone for other insurances. So you just want to have across the board great standardized documentation for all patients for that. So the getting paid for that. Communication is very important with your notes, with other clinicians and other staff. If you're not going to be seeing your staff on a regular basis, communication through electronic communication notes is very important to have with them as well. And even if you're a fill-in person for a PT for a clinic, if you are a fill-in person, you want to have good documentation for what the previous person did or the task ahead of you, or if you're the evaluating clinician too, you want to set the tone with that. So it makes it important to set the tone for what that is, and if that person can't read your note or what there is, they're going to be confused, and they could have 2, 3, 4 patients that same hour, and that's the last thing the person wants. I know myself, I've seen that where documentation standards suck, and it's really a pain in the butt. They talk about being gentle as possible with doing range of motion with people, because people might feel like you're aggressive with it, and some people want to be aggressive, so that might backfire on it. But saying, I'm going to move your arm as gentle as possible, or let's get up and we get it rolling as much as we can. But remember, you're in control. Don't get too fast on there too, saying that the person's in control, but they are in control of what they're doing. And being gentle is a thing that they talked about doing there too, so they don't want to feel like you're doing too much too fast with some of your home health patients. Because remember, these people are homebound, they're deconditioned, they're not the best with it. And then what functional limitations are keeping them homebound, they talked about in the video, or in the meeting. And it's very important to know, to talk about what's tough for them to do, why are they out there, is it shortness of breath, ataxia, do they need help with anything, is it safety concerns, can they not walk correctly on there as well. So there's some things that we looked at. And yeah, so the functional limitations, that, and then the training, there's, like I said, they're working on the training for that as well in the home health stuff. So we talked about that. We're going to probably have to meet with them, every couple weekends or every quarter at least, to get up on the date with that too, especially PRN staff. If they're out in the field, they don't come to the office as much. Okay. So that was my meeting today, Saturday, but ultimately we had some outpatient stuff. Got some notes here, which is kind of, then they get organized with it. But the one thing I definitely wanted to share about it was, we had, basically, I filled in for an office for at a clinic again, because I've been between two different clinics. And there's one that's my home-based clinic, and the other one that I'm kind of working there 10, 11 hours a week, basically. So, but basically, I saw a patient, and I never saw the patient before, but this is like their third or fourth, even fifth visit, so it wasn't their evaluation. And I asked the patient, how are you feeling today? That's my general thing. I always ask all my patients whether I see them or not today. And she replied, well, no one's ever asked me that. And that's terrible. For no one to feel like no one has asked her how she's doing, how she's feeling, how's therapy making her, that's terrible. I feel that way. I ask that all the time. So that communication sets the tone for them to feel like, oh, I care. So I ask them, how are you feeling? And they might give me, oh, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm this, I got a lot going on, blah, blah, blah. Don't really care too much about that. I care about how is their back or their neck or their shoulder or whatever they're coming to therapy doing. So I asked them the general, how are you feeling? Then I say, well, how's your shoulder doing today? And she was like, oh, it's actually okay. And they said, well, what are you still having trouble doing? You're communicating with the patient. I've never seen the patient, so I wanted to get to know the person to see what we have to work on, what we want to focus on, what are their limitations, and to give them the sense that I'm going to work on those things to improve them, because I want there to get better. I want that person to get better more than anything. So that's what was my main focus of there too. And she said, thank you for asking, and it made her feel great that I was concerned about it as well. So it's like, what the crap are you doing? What are other therapists not doing for that too? So I saw her, she did all that, and it sucked because I wasn't going to see her again most likely. And she wanted to be on my schedule, she wanted to work with me and everything, which is a great compliment to me, but the other therapists need to pick up the slack and just do that as a staff person that's going to see her on a regular basis. So that was just another thing I have. I got plenty more other crap to hear. We'll be doing other videos about that. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, guys, and we appreciate your input, and as always, thank you.